And now here's Nick.
Hey, good to see you too, man. Aloha.
Well, I want to join the welcomes to you, and I can't believe that I'm holding the same mic that Colin Farrell held. So, anyway, you've had a day now. What do you think of this festival?
My God, this place is incredible. To be out in the open air and see the stars and enjoy like these amazing films. What could be better than this? It's pretty amazing. Yeah, it's a pretty amazing place.
This isn't your first trip, right?
No, this is the first trip that I remember, though. I was here when I was very, very young.
Okay.
I actually, apparently I was just told I took my first steps in Maui. So it's kind of a full circle.
Wow.
First steps and now Mai Tai.
And, and now you're back being honored at the beginning of a career. We do that here. And it's funny to watch your whole career in this clip reel and realize it hasn't even begun yet. But it's great for us to tap in with you right now. Can you talk a little bit about what it was that made you want to do this, get into this?
Yeah, well, I guess it was partially boredom and partially like a natural outlet for just creativity that I had when I was a kid. It was sort of something that came naturally to me once I started doing theater and different shows in Seattle, A Christmas Carol, like Colin mentioned. I mean, these things just became kind of a part of me, and it was something really exciting about being able to go out and play someone else and be someone else for the day, and then come back home and have your life and what you want to do, and then you get to kind of try on all these different shoes and see which ones fit.
But it must be pretty interesting to be playing a young person as a young person. I mean, do you have a kind of wisdom that you bring to it, or are you making it up as you go?
I'm flying blind constantly. Yeah, I think that you just try and empathize as much as you can with whatever character you're trying to play, and you bring as much of yourself and your experience to it as you can, which, you know, it's not always easy. A lot of the times you kind of have to play Mad Libs and fill in the blanks of stuff that hasn't affected you, or, you know, you haven't been through. I mean, there was a film while I was in rehab, and I've never been to rehab, and I have a lot of experiences. I've never been chased by a dinosaur in actuality. So,
I was going to ask about that. Was that filmed in the islands?
That was filmed in Oahu and Kauai. So we didn't have the pleasure of coming out to Maui, but we spent a good 2 months out here, and we visited all these different ranches. The valley where the original was filmed, and it's jaw-dropping, the scenery that Hawaii has and the natural beauty. It feels like it's nowhere like nowhere else in the world.
Did you get any sense of the culture of what was here beyond all the stereotypes?
I think so. I started to sort of scratch away the Waikiki beach and going out and actually explore everything that Oahu has to offer. And Kauai was incredible too. It was sort of the opposite of Oahu in the sense of it felt like a real island, you know.
Well, speaking of reality, you know, for us watching that movie, you jumped off a cliff into a river. There was a dinosaur behind you. You damn near drowned, and you got out on the shore. What was really going on making that sequence? Did you get wet even?
I did. Yeah, I did get to dip my feet in the pool down there. But unfortunately, they wouldn't let us jump. I petitioned for it. I tried, but they said no. We shot that on Kauai on a private ranch. I think it's called JK Ranch. And we were there for a couple of days, and they had a waterfall with this big pool underneath it, and they put us up on harnesses, and we sort of leaned out over the edge as far as we could, and they yelled cut, and we jumped in the pool at the bottom, or walked down and into the pool. Yeah, it's a little bit of movie magic.
Were there any large animals on the set, or did that all come later?
That pretty much all came later. There were some poor, unfortunate souls who had to be in like raptor costumes in like 110-degree heat. But for the most part, it was just all CGI.
Okay. Now, you grew up in Seattle, and then what age were you when you went to LA to become a movie person?
I went to LA when I was 15 or 16 for the first time. I had just a very random sequences of events. I think everyone can, you know, this was not something that I was really intending necessarily, and so I had a few mutual friends in Seattle who knew some people in LA, so I could introduce myself. His name was Adam Gettle. He was a Broadway composer actually, and he had a friend in LA, and he was like, you know, why don't you go down and give it a shot, and it doesn't hurt to meet him. And so I went down and I met a bunch of different people, and then when I was 16, I ended up booking a television show, and I sort of just figured it out as I went from there on.
That show was Kings of Summer?
That show was actually called Melissa and Joey, and that was my first ever film experience, and then Kings of Summer came after that.
And talk about that. That's kind of like the kids' Lord of the Rings, except warmer and fuzzier.
Yeah, I guess there could be some Lord of the Rings. There's some swords in there. That was a wonderful experience. I got criminally lucky to work on that one just because of the people involved and just being able to really express yourself creatively. Creatively.
You said it creatively.
Creatively, yeah. Thank you. Just to be actual, have sort of freedom of expression in this job that I didn't have a lot of experience in, and to be sort of shepherded through that by, we had a wonderful director, Jordan Vogt Roberts, who just really allowed us to sort of create and be free and be ourselves. And that was something that I actually hadn't experienced before. I had a great experience on the television show, but it was just a very different format, and it was very regimented, and there was a schedule, and you stuck to the schedule. And so this was a little bit more of a freeing experience, and it felt more like theater that I had done growing up. It sort of felt like I was coming home in a way. And that was sort of I feel like that encapsulates my youth in a lot of ways, that movie.
There was a lot of humor running through the clip reel. Is that something you're bringing, or are you just drawn to those kinds of roles?
It's all written. I'm just trying to make it funny as I can. That movie in particular was written by a very, very funny guy named Chris Galetta, and he has this really wonderful dry wit that sometimes it takes you a second to process, and you say a line, and then you kind of think about it afterwards as you're walking away. So that was really all him.
Now, you were talking about being Charlie and being in rehab, and that's an experience that's alien to you. Rob Reiner was directing them. Talk about that experience.
That film was a very personal story for Rob, and so I felt sort of an extra level of responsibility with it. He made that film with his son, who went through a lot of the same experiences that Charlie did. So it was really just trying to not mess that up. His son actually wrote the script.
And so you were watching the two of them, and they're watching you tell his story?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a surreal experience, and I would go back, after a scene, and we'd sort of chat about it, and I'd talk to his son and see if it was like, does that work? Was that kind of how it was? So yeah, we talked extensively beforehand and tried to make something that was true to his experience as much as possible.
Was it hard for you? Think about like Heath Ledger going to really dark places to play roles. Was it hard on you to sort of go through the things you were playing?
I wouldn't say it was. Some of the scenes were sort of hard to read, and then let alone actually act. But I don't really subscribe to jumping in like that and sort of immersing yourself in rehab or anything like that.
Yeah. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, we've got Love Simon. So talk about that moment in time. Love, Simon is really a hit right now. Why do you think that movie clicked?
It's a good question. I think that story is something that our director, I think, summed it up best, where he grew up watching teenage movies that he kept having to do this mental math to sort of fit himself into. And he set out to make sort of a John Hughes-esque movie, but with the protagonist being of same sex. And so he wanted to make something, I think, that his teenage self would have sat down and enjoyed and wouldn't have had to sort of mix pieces around to make it fit for him. And that's what we set out to do. And I think that's why it resonated with people, is because it's been, I mean, you know, he's been waiting for this movie for 30 years.
Yeah, and it was really nice because you brought a very light touch to telling that story. And there's a lot of humor and a lot of empathy. Talk about what you do besides make movies. What kinds of things are important to you?
Well, I have, I mean, just in terms of hobbies and all that.
Hobbies or missions?
Well, I've done a little bit of work with. My cousin has muscular dystrophy, and so that's something that I've like to sort of bring more awareness to. But you know, I tried surfing today.
How'd it go?
Not well.
Well, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, there's always tomorrow.
Okay, well, I'm going to wrap this up now, and thanks a lot. It's a great honor to have you here. And
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.